You might want to be careful when this Cajun picks a card. Here's a look at the brand new Hasbro Marvel Legends X-Men 97 series Gambit. Bring the excitement and wonder of the Marvel Universe to your collection with the Hasbro Marvel Legends Gambit and other X-Men action figures. This collectible 6-inch scale action figure is detailed to look like Gambit from the Marvel Studios X-Men 97. Gambit's Marvel Legends figure is fully articulated with premium design and posable head, arms, and legs. This Marvel action figure comes with 3 accessories. Hasbro's Marvel action figure 6-inch scale makes them great for posing and displaying in fans' collections. Just before we decide to actually play cards with this guy, I would best recommend everybody check his sleeves. I'm sure he's got extra cards up there. Before, of course, we get a closer look at the brand new Hasbro Marvel Legends X-Men 97 series Gambit. I don't even know how I'm going to be putting that all in the title. Let's first grab the tape measure, and then we'll worry about the title later. He is going to be a lot taller than the earlier looked at Wolverine. Wait, what? You looked at the earlier looked at Wolverine? I did. I know sometimes it's a little hard. We may be missing videos with so many things that the guy behind the camera is always uploading. There's always a good likelihood that you may have missed out on something like the earlier looked at Wolverine. Don't worry, I'll bring him in for comparison's sake in a second. Gambit, though, stands at about 6 3/4 of an inch in height. That's factoring in his hair, and he has quite a lot of it. Or the figure is going to be about 17 centimeters tall. And in the off chance that you didn't see my review of Wolverine from before, I'm going to slide over Gambit just to show you that Wolverine is quite short. Not to draw that too much to the attention of Wolverine, I'm sure he already hears that well enough already. The figure of Wolverine only goes with the little earpieces that he has for his mask. It just only clears the section of Gambit's collar. If, though, we weren't to include the little side ears of his mask, then he only goes a little bit higher than the shoulders of the Cajun here. Now, if you close your eyes for a second and picture the accessories that you would expect Gambit to come included with, what would you picture? A staff, yes. Probably an extra flaming card, sure. Oh, and somebody also said as well the hands that are firing 3 cards. Okay, open your eyes. You literally have guessed exactly the stuff that gets packed along with Gambit. And in no ways is that diminishing actually the things that he comes included with. It's just the fact that the expectation at least does deliver pretty cool looking accessories. And I don't mind the fact that we've already kind of gone down this territory before of looking at Gambit figures in the past. He always tends to come included with his staff, and we'll look at that first. The staff is a fairly soft plastic. You can actually make a staff smile with it if you want to. The coloring that they've done is matching pretty close to the collar. So if you were to say look at the collar piece and then his boots, the staff is only just a darker shade of sort of this metallic blue, but it gets certainly the job done. Now, when it comes to him holding it, he really only has the option of, say, this hand, because this hand's going to be doing all the work of holding cards. So really, you can only slide the staff in this hand. So he has a grip that's best suited for holding the staff, and I would say it holds it okay. It's not the tightest of grips, but at least, again, it holds the staff the way it should. Now, unfortunately, with him being a trench coat character, he doesn't have, for example, like a double hinge on the elbows like the earlier looked at Wolverine. Instead, unfortunately, he sacrifices one of them to only get just a single hinge. So you can't get a really crazy pose with his arms, but at least, again, if you want to have the figure displayed, you can kind of have like the staff displayed like kind of behind his back, and then him, of course, holding the card in his other hand. Let's just right now remove this staff. We'll put the figure back down here for a second. The figure as well comes included with an Ace of Hearts. Get a load of that. It looks like it's obviously been clearly molded in more translucent pinkish purple, but then they've done, as they've done in times before, painted the actual card over top of it. It gives you a really neat effect, and I'm never again disappointed that we always get these sort of same accessories with the figures. Now, if you want to, for example, take the card and put it in his hands, if you look at sort of these 2 fingers that he has here, scissored with the fingers, you can go ahead and take then the card and fit it in between, and you can have Gambit then displayed with his flaming card in his one hand. If you want to say go though all out, then the figure also comes included with this hand, which basically then takes the single Ace of Hearts and then splits it by 3, because he has, well, let me just get the figure stand here for example. He comes with all aces, so he already has the heart, then he gets himself a club, a diamond, and a spade. So of course all 4 of the aces are there, and then somehow he managed to have extra aces up his sleeve. Again, I don't know if I really want to play cards with this guy. So as you can see, he has the 3 now firing aces coming out from his fingers, and again all being done with his translucent purple plastic. I would imagine, based on the fact that the peg down below is also using that same color, that they then would have gone in and painted the glove and painted the fingers. And the effect is nicely done here. If you didn't want to change out the hands, say for example you didn't want to have this one displayed, then we're going to go ahead and just remove the hand. All the hands, by the way, swapping out at least is going to be on this side. So like if you look at it, the thumbs usually will all be going in on this side. You won't have anything to swap out on the other. So let's go ahead and just remove his hand. Just twist it, by the way, as you're about to pop it. And then we're going to go ahead and just replace, put the new hand in place. There we go. And now you can have Gambit firing off his cards. And then from there, of course, you can get a little bit more creative with the way that you're going to be posing the figure. You get a more wider stance with him. You can also have like the staff behind him. And even though the figure doesn't come included with the display stand, as already mentioned when we looked at the Wolverine review, all the figures also at least have pegals on the undersides of his feet. Now, Gambit unfortunately can't get as creative, even though he does have a softer trench coat. I guess you could still give him a fairly good split, so we're going to backtrack it just a little bit by that. But I really like the idea of him being displayed firing off the three extra aces with the other one already over here. For the sake of this, obviously, I'm just going to pop the hand back off. I'm going to put back in the original hand because I just think it'd be a little bit easier looking at the articulation and such for the figure. But before we actually get down to the articulation points for Gambit, I did want to show you guys what the head sculpt looks like. Easily for me, at least. And I know it's kind of early to jump into that opinion, but having already looked at the other ones that are on the card, I would say easily Gambit is my favorite. Then maybe Wolverine, and then, well, I won't talk about the other ones until, of course, we get down to their reviews. I don't want to spoil anything too early. Gambit has a fantastic head sculpt. In a way, it kind of reminds me of Peter Parker from, was it Into the Spider-Verse, the original figure that we got for him. I can't recall if whether he actually had, I think he had a trench coat also as well. But the face does, for me at least, remind me a little bit of Into the Spider-Verse Wolverine, Into the Spider-Verse Peter Parker. Of course, like the more trademark things that Gambit will have, one of which being his red pupils, has been nicely painted there on the inside of his eyeballs. And of course, he does have the cowl piece open enough just, of course, to have all this raging Cajun hair sticking out the top. The figure has a fantastic side profile, and equally, as you're rotating the figure around, it really does look good from all the sides. I did say this in the review of Wolverine, I'll reiterate it again when we look at Gambit here, is the fact that I feel like really not only having pinless joints, which is now one thing that's going to be going with the Marvel Legends brand as a whole, but just like the paintwork and the way that they've executed the figures, some of the best stuff. Now, again, I'm not one that collects a lot of Marvel Legends, so it's maybe a little harder for me to make that statement, but I will say, at least from what I'm seeing with this X-Men line, really good stuff coming from the folks over at Hasbro as of late. Now, he does have the jacket. Actually, just before we talk about the jacket, one thing I did want to say, because of course it can't be all positive points, Gambit generally has a pretty large head. I will say proportionally, if you look at his body, for example, I feel like his head is maybe a tad longer than it should be, but I'm okay to accept that, I feel, for the fact that the head sculpt is as good as it is. Maybe I'm a little biased. Maybe I should be a little bit more critical to the fact that the head is as big as it is. But I'm okay with the fact that the head is as long as it is, as good as it, being the fact that the head is as good as it is. As for the rest of the figure's body, he has, again, all the stuff that you would expect Gambit to have. So sort of more of this off, kind of more warm pink color that he has for his top section of his torso, and then he has the same matching pink that he has striped down the sides of his legs. All this additional metallic blue that we looked at earlier with the staff, though being a little bit lighter in shade. He has that also in his collar piece, and he also has it trimmed around the belt area before, of course, we get down to the boots. The boots, again, are nicely handled. They seem to be all sculpted rather than actually painted. I would have expected, and I'm just kind of looking around at it right now, there would have been some substantial marbling, which usually is the case whenever they do like metallic plastics. But as you can see, kind of looking at Gambit, he doesn't have as much the marbling as I was expecting. So maybe they found a way to actually cure the plastic without coming up with all this additional marbling in there. There is an area, I will say, though, like where this doesn't look like it's quite the same color as the boot down below, but it's pretty close in color, so it doesn't bother me that much. I know I did already mention the fact the figure only has a single hinge in his elbow, so that's one thing, unfortunately, he does have to sacrifice in order to accommodate a trench coat. But like looking at the trench coat, the fact that this is a separate piece, the colors are pretty close to the arms that he has, and of course, he does also have, again, if you look at the legs, but like proportionally, I feel like there's something a little off on the figure, so again, obviously, I would have to be one to mention that as well. Like his head, if you look at it, like his torso and his legs, I don't know, I feel like his legs are a little on the shorter side too. For some reason, it doesn't bother me as much. Maybe for Gambit, it may bother you a little bit more, but like looking at it, it does look like it's a little bit off, but not enough to be a deal breaker at all for the figure for me. Now, looking at the articulation for Gambit, we're going to go back to his head sculpt here. It's going to be on a ball joint, so like even though because he has a higher collar, I mean, it would normally, for all intents and purposes, limit the articulation, but at least with the color being softer plastic, you can get a full rotation for Gambit's head. The head as well does also have a hinge joint, so above and beyond just already having a really good range of motion for just the ball joint alone, he does also have a hinge joint that's right there. I'm going to do my best to kind of get my finger out of the way of things. It allows the head to also hinge down quite a lot, in fact. So if he's a little bit heartbroken that he can't get closer to Rogue, you can also have the head looking really, really low, or you can also have the head looking really high as well. And of course, all the range in between. Now for his arms, the arms do rotate all the way around. He has what you can also see as well, he doesn't have the crunch. So like when we looked at Wolverine, for example, can bring back in Wolverine. Wolverine had the shoulder crunch, so you can also bring those arms back, for example, or you can also bring them forward. I know I did cover all of that in the territory of Wolverine's review. Gambit doesn't have that. Gambit only has just a hinge joint in his shoulders, even though it's, hidden obviously by his trench coat. It allows at least the arms to hinge out at 90 degrees. No problem, no issues there. You can take as well the arms and rotate them all the way around. But what he doesn't have, though, if I can just get the hinge down, he doesn't have the means to bring his arms forward or back any further than what you're seeing right now. The figure does have a swivel in his bicep. That would obviously be the case also on this side as well. And the figure only has, unlike Wolverine that had two, he only has one of those. He has a single hinge only in his elbow, but at least it allows the forearm to rotate all the way around. Hands rotate also all the way around. You can hinge those back and forth. And the figure has, like Wolverine, a crunch. And that's usually the case when it comes to Marvel Legends. You can crunch them either further back, or you can also bring them forward. And with that, he also has the swiveling in his waist as well. Gambit, once you, of course, get the jacket out of the way, can't split his legs that far. And looking at his legs, he actually has 3/4 of the way, so half is about here. If you go a little further than that, 3/4 of the way up the thigh is a swivel cut, so that allows the leg to rotate all the way around. The figure does also have a double hinge on the knee, so unlike not having it in the elbow, at least he does have a double hinge in his knee. And of course, when it comes to his leg, his lower leg, around the calf area, there's a swivel cut, so you can rotate the leg all the way around there. And for his ankle, you can move the ankle up and down this way, although it's a little tight on my figure. And you can also rock it back and forth, not as tight there. Yeah, again, it's probably a bold statement to be making this so early into the game of looking at the Marvel Legends, the X-Men series. I mean, again, we've only really looked at now Gambit, and then earlier to that, we also looked at Wolverine. I'm going to bring in Wolverine right now. Gambit is my favorite. Of course, I don't think that necessarily will change because I already have seen these figures in the packaging. I don't think just by simply removing them and having them loose, my opinions will be doctored any differently than what I already am saying. Gambit has a great head sculpt. It's a little on the bigger side. I mean, proportionally, when you again look at his torso, he has, again, like long torso, kind of a little shorter, stumpier legs, and a really long head. But still, though, I like the work that they put to the piece. It has, again, all the things I would expect like a 97 Gambit to have, for example. And even though while we have covered the territory of all the things that normally Gambit would come included with, like, for example, his staff, like, for example, his hands and the different flaming effect cards, yeah, I really like the way that Gambit did turn out here. And even though, as mentioned already, with the Wolverine, he doesn't have a display stand, which I kind of wish Hasbro would include stands. I mean, I know we are getting them, obviously, with other companies, but a display stand would also go really a long way if you want to get this guy in a more creative pose than having him just standing like he is right now. Once again, here in Final Looks, I am cheating a little bit by using technically a display stand that never really got packaged with Gambit in the first place. Unfortunately, while it is still something that's omitted from the Marvel Legends line as a whole, Hasbro at least includes a peg hole on the bottoms of the boots for all their figures from the 97 line that we've looked at so far, so you can use at least an equally sized peg stand. I'm just happening to use one that got packed along with one of the, of course, the McFarlane DC Multiverse figures. It gets the job done, of course, and without having the DC logo, at least it's printed in black, you don't really see it as much as maybe a logo stand that would stand out a lot more. Gambit at least has posability where it counts. He doesn't have as much of it necessarily in his elbows like Wolverine we looked at before, but he has just the right amount of posability that if you are creative when it comes to posing your figures, you can really have a lot of fun. I've seen a lot of talented photographers, for example, on places like Instagram that take photos of their figures, and with doing them in poses like you see right now and even incorporating some really intricate backgrounds to them, yeah, you can really get some really cool stuff going on with these Marvel Legends figures. Now, for Gambit's case, at least, it's my favorite figure from this line, and I don't think I feel like I'm going to be changing that opinion anytime soon either. We are still going to be looking at Storm, we are still going to be looking at Rogue, Magneto, and Bishop, but based on what the figures we've looked at so far, and then looking at the ones that are in the packaging, I think it's pretty safe to say that Gambit is my favorite of this line, and I really like the pose I've got him currently in right now. What do you guys think of this X-Men series line so far? Have you had the chance to be collecting any of these? And as a whole, is this a line that you could really see yourselves getting behind? I know we don't do nearly enough Marvel Legends reviews here on this channel, but this might very well be the thing that kind of awakes my interest once again to start going back to collecting this line. I did say a lot of it more in Wolverine's review, and one thing I also did want to tack on to this review as well is the fact that Gambit still is using this seamless body, so they're doing away with all the visible pegs on the joints. It kind of gives them definitely more of a seamless look and adds more realism to at least somewhat unrealistic looking Gambit, again, with the proportion that he had for his body. But all in all, though, one of my favorite, if not my favorite figure from the X-Men 97 line. If you guys enjoyed this video, want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and you certainly would like to stick around for the remaining reviews of the X-Men 97 line, if you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, and you're as well turning on the bell notification. As already mentioned, this is a 6-figure wave, by the way, so we will still be looking at Magneto, Rogue, Bishop, and Storm, not necessarily in that particular order, so make sure you're coming back on a regular basis. Of course, as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.